Devastated, confused, heartbroken. So many times in life we get thrown for a curve and don't know how to react.
I can tell you the first time I had sex, how was my marriage going to survive? It's over. I remember standing in front of the judge with my 3-week-old baby, looking at my ex. I saw the look on his face, and it was complete rage.
Welcome to When Life Throws You a Curve and How to Make the Adjustment with your host, Katie Hamilton.
Hey everyone, welcome to When Life Throws You a Curve and How to Make the Adjustment. I'm Katie Hamilton. I, for the third week in a row, have an amazing guest yet again. This week, I have on the show celebrity publicist and host of the Dominic Natty Show, the king of contacts himself, Mr. Dominic Natty.
Yeah.
Cash.
That's right.
Nice to see you. How are you?
I'm doing great. It's great to see you. I hope everyone in Dallas is all right. And just sitting here, bored out of my mind, trying to get through this quarantine. But this is fun. This will be fun to at least talk with somebody. I've just been sitting here alone on my laptop for about a month now.
Well, I definitely have a ton of questions to ask you. So many, even more since like just the Zoom with you went, hit go. Just to give some, the listeners a little bit of history between me and you. We very first quote met when I did your show about 6 or 8 months ago.
Yeah.
And little did I know, of course, that, I'd be having a podcast. And actually, you were supposed to be in Dallas for this interview. It seemed like everything was very serendipitous and just falling right into place. And probably less than a week after you got on the schedule, we all got hit with this life curve, which is the COVID-19 pandemic.
Yeah.
So we're having to make the adjustment and do a Zoom, but it is still good to see your face, and you look very well. And I was going to ask you about your quarantine, like your life in quarantine, but we can get to that. It's so good to see you. I'm so glad that you came on. You're smoking a cigar. You look well. You seem like you're making the most of the situation.
I'm trying to. Yeah. I mean, I can't lie. Like this is pretty brutal. It's boring to sit at home this much. I do like to travel, but I think the easier way to get through it is that I'm not missing out on anything. There's so many events, and stuff that I can be a part of. And that's the part that excites me. So the only thing that makes it a little bit easier is that nothing's going on. So if I can get on a plane, if I go somewhere, I'm just going to sit there too. So that's the good news is there's no FOMO. You're not missing anything because nothing's happening. Yeah. No,
in fact, the eventful things are things that we do not want to take part of. They're like not. No, so you're right. There is no FOMO. So the fact that you're having to stay home, are you surrounded with like your wife? I think you're married. Is that correct?
We are actually recently separated.
Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that.
We're still friends though. We still she actually smokes cigars with me sometimes, and we usually hang out on the holidays and hang out sometimes. So it's just, I don't know, just wasn't really working out, but a lot of my friends think it's very strange. Like, we'll talk on the phone and stuff. It's just, I think it's just the marriage part, lost some interest, but yeah.
Well, let me tell you, please try to stay friends. I think that is awesome. And listen, you might be hard pressed to find another woman that enjoys smoking cigars, at least as much as you. So if you, at least if you guys can remain cigar buddies, I think that's amazing. And it just makes so much life easier if you can get along and, respect each other and all of that. Because divorce and separation, all that it's no joke. It's
nasty, Yeah.
So that's good to hear at least. But you're alone in the quarantine situation.
Yeah. So it's like, that's the thing is, so I'm a member at this cigar shop 24 hours. So it's like, I can sit here with friends that are also members, until like midnight or 1 a.m. or whatever, so that's kind of cool. But that's the thing is I don't really I have a son and I like hanging out with him, but that was my thing is I don't really like sitting home, so I would just get on a plane and go places, So this has been a little tough learning how to like watch documentaries and like just sit there and watch TV. It's not really what I want to be doing.
So speaking of documentaries, or binge watching anything, do you have any recommendations, favorites, or things you've been sucked into against your will?
Yeah, you know what? I did watch this one. I think it's from 2009 or 2012. So I watched, I think it's called The Wild and Wonderful Whites of West Virginia.
Oh, wow.
Is one you got to see. Now, I'm from New York and I'm living in Virginia right now. So
what part of Virginia?
It's near Roanoke. It's called Lynchburg, Virginia. It's like between Roanoke and Richmond.
Yeah, I know that area very well.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so that's where I'm at, and then so I'm a Yankee, and I watched this documentary about this family from West Virginia, and they're just insane and crazy, and I don't know. I thought it was hilarious. I mean, it's crazier than about as crazy as like Tiger King.
But that one got me this weekend, and I have never regretted something so quickly, but I jumped down the rabbit hole Saturday morning and I emerged Saturday night after all 7 episodes were completed. The whole time thinking, oh my God, Katie, what are you doing? You have work to do. This is a waste, but I could not look away.
Can't get away from it.
I even watched the bonus one. Dang you, John McHale. John McHale, that's his name, right? That did this bonus episode on Sunday. I watched that too. So
yeah,
I wrote down this 2012 or 6 documentary about West Virginia, The Wild, Wonderful.
Wild and Wonderful Whites. This is the White family. Whites of West Virginia.
I thought you were talking about like mountains, like snow. Like I thought that's what you meant. Hello.
People, these are crazy rednecks, and they just there's a lot of crime, and it's like a crime mystery, and it's I don't know how funny you think like some of like the redneck life is, but it's to me it's just
the entire season of the Tiger King in one day.
Dude, it's just like I thought it was going to be about tigers, and I was like, I don't really care that much about animals, but no, it's just like the twists of that were just I binge watched it too. I was like, well, I got 3 more episodes. I was like, then I watched one. I was like, oh, I only got 2 left.
I was like, kids, I have 15 minutes left. And I'm like, no, you can't watch this, but I'm just going to need you to like get me in 15 minutes. Cause it was, they said, they were like, we've never seen you do this before. I was like, I know.
No, I've never watched 7 episodes of anything in a row ever. So there's nothing else to do. There's nothing pulling me to say, well, I mean, my business is still doing well. Like I still have clients, but it's slower, and without travel, it's, I'm lucky that, a lot of my clients stuck with me through this, because I'm a publicist. So it's like, it's definitely not in the category of a necessity, I wouldn't, a couple people had to drop, and I can't argue with them. It's like, yeah, I mean, this is serious times. So there's, you're not like, I'm not one of those essential things. It's a luxury item to have a publicist, so but I appreciate the people that found the value in it and are sticking with me, so yeah, that I'm really grateful for that.
Definitely. I mean, yeah, it is hard times, and it's definitely a change for everyone, so I know everyone's trying to do the best they can. But speaking of your profession and being a publicist, can you kind of rewind the tape for everybody and share with us how how did you become the king of contacts? How did you fall into the world, or maybe intentionally pursue the world of publicity and PR and all of that?
Yeah. So I did things, I guess, what people call a little bit backwards. Like, so when I was I'm 41. When I was in my 20s, I started doing, like videos, like when video editing started getting big in the early 2000s. And then I was a wedding videographer. And then I got on like a small TV show in New York where I was working. And then I moved to Charlotte, North Carolina in 2005. And I wound up getting a position on a movie with Will Ferrell, a NASCAR movie which then
Oh,
became
wow.
Talladega Nights. Yeah,
Love that one.
yeah. So that was cool. I mean, that was like my first big jump. Whereas, like, I was doing this small Christian TV show. I was a producer in New York, and then when I moved to Charlotte, it was really unlikely I'd get on this movie in production, but I did. And I just worked with Judd Apatow, and I just had to take care of him, and because he was the producer of this movie, and then the movie got big, and then after that, it was like, oh, you worked on Talladega Nights, so everybody in Charlotte knew what was going on, and then I kind of went from there to like reality TV,
Mhm.
which is usually people look at as a step down, but I like TV more than film. I think film it was fun working on movies, but it was really long hours, and I don't think I just wasn't good enough, to be honest. And then like I had other people that just were a lot more dedicated. So I felt like these film students were just almost running me over in a way because they were so intense and they're so dedicated. So I went to reality TV. I did that for 7 years. And then I don't really like being on set. So I started working on my own project, and I wrote an email to some news anchors and told them this project I was working on, and they were like, "What is this you're emailing me? Is this supposed to be a press release?" And I was like, "Is it?" Like I didn't know. I was like, "What's a press release?" So I had to Google that, and then I was like, "Yeah." So then I wound up getting all this exposure for this project I was working on, and then I fell in love with that. I was like, I could just email people, and like I could get in the news, like just from writing this press release. And for some reason, I like that more than working on major films and big reality TV shows. I guess just the freedom of it, because I don't like standing around. I don't like being on someone else's time schedule. So I was a camera operator for the NBA for the Charlotte Hornets, and I just felt like I was kind of average at everything, but I seemed to be really good at doing PR and making, so everything else I was just like, okay. And I had a good resume, but I really wasn't above the rest, So I started doing that. People were like, "Oh, I saw you on this. Like, do you think you can get exposure for me?" And that's when I learned there was like a need for it. And I said, yeah, and then I started, networking and figuring out people's email addresses. And that's when they're like, "Man, you got more contacts than my big agent that I got who can't get a hold of people." I was like, "You're the king of contacts." So that just kind of stuck. And, it's just a weird kind of thing. Like I spend a lot of time trying to figure out how people do their email addresses and who the right person is, and looking at LinkedIn. And, it's like a lot of effort that most people just don't invest in. They just say like, "Oh, I want to be in this newspaper," or "I want to get a hold of this celebrity." And they're like, "I have no idea how to get a hold of them." So I just worked at it until I figured everything out, So, and I don't know, I just really like it. For some reason, I'd rather see, news articles that have my client's name in it or my name in it or cover my radio show than actually sit at an award show, I don't know. It's just, I think everybody's different, as far as like exposure. Like, I think everyone likes things more than others. Like, I remember talking to you about reality TV, and it wasn't something that you really wanted to do, but other people would kill to do that.
Yeah, it depends so much on who the people that are around you.
Yeah.
I loved Housewives of Orange County. I loved the studio. I loved my coworkers. I didn't necessarily have that same love affair with Marrying Millions for, a host of reasons. But not to say that somebody else on the show wouldn't. Just, it's kind of like whatever resonates with you, and a lot has to do with whatever season you're in your own life, and what's driving you, what you're passionate about, and how you feel like you're fulfilling or kind of giving back where your areas of talents lie. So I think it's really fascinating that you found this little like this niche or like a need, and then you were able to put in that time, effort, energy, and see that return on your investment and how it was such an asset to people. And that is very fulfilling. I mean, I totally see why that would be a satisfying, profession for someone to be in. I know I wouldn't have the patience to sit down and figure out people's emails and
Yeah.
no. I would not be able to do that. That's not somewhere. So I have great admiration for people that can, because I can't even figure out how to do a dang iMovie. And that's like in its simplest form. I mean, I just, we all have our strengths. So, okay. So as far as, so you've become a publicist. Do you remember getting your very first official client? And do you remember who it was? Or can you say?
Yeah. I could talk about things that have, that are public and that have mentioned my name as people's publicist and representative. I think my very first client was Shaquille O'Neal's personal chef. His name was Jerome Brown.
He had a full-time job. That is not no easy task feeding Shaquille, I would imagine.
Yeah.
Takes
That
a lot
was
of calories.
He was playing, he got him to drop a lot of weight because he was eating. It was pretty cool. Like he gave me a shot, and I didn't quite, I've been looking back, I had no idea how to present myself to him, and we still became really good friends. And then he got so busy doing news appearances and press that the guy he was cooking for, another basketball player, that guy hired me for an NBA player, hired me for several years, so it's like it kind of one like kind of led to the other. And then I wound up working in sports for a while in Charlotte, like where everything just started snowballing, like where they talk a lot in the locker rooms, and like, oh, I saw you on this and that, and they're like, yeah, I got this publicist. And then they start to kind of to talk, and you get involved in these circles, so that was my first client, and it helped, snowball everything from there. And then the first client that that I really worked with is I'm from New York. I grew up in the 90s, and I was in high school in the 90s, and I was a big fan of DMX, the rapper. So he was really my favorite. Like on my Pandora station at the time, it was like I had 3 channels, and DMX was one of them. Like I really was a huge fan. And then I'm looking through Facebook, and I saw that one of my friends on Facebook is friends with his fiance, and through all a very strange series of events, I wound up, finding his fiance, and then she told me all these things, that he was getting out of jail soon. And then I got his number. I set up interviews for him while he was in jail. And then when he got out, I was his publicist for 4 years. And for me, it was just, I know he's not doing obviously that much anymore, but it was just such a surreal thing to drive around and hang out with a guy that like I really liked his music. Like if I would go back and talk to like 17-year-old Dominic, I'll be like, you're not going to believe this. You know what I mean? So it's like, it's kind of weird that way, because if you're a fan, sometimes it'll affect, like what you do. And then if you're totally disinterested in someone that's also a celebrity, it can kind of affect it in a negative way. Like I interview celebrities on my show, and I had Gene Simmons on from Kiss, and it just did not go well at all, because I don't listen to that music. I don't really know any Kiss songs. And he could kind of pick up that, like, I was asking stupid questions, and he was just a real jerk, and being a jerk in return, because I think you could just tell, like, I was just being goofy and trying to be funny. And then I just didn't I was asking him like what he thought of Justin Bieber's new album and stuff. And he was just like, he just didn't like my questions. And but I think it affects you. Like when you're, we work with celebrities, if you actually care, it just comes across. And if you don't, it could be negative or positive. When I lived in Charlotte, I was friends with one of the guitar players from Aerosmith. And I like Aerosmith, but there's people that are crazy fans, like super, but he liked that, like, I didn't really know a ton about them,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm not, when I would see, like 40-year-old women, it would just be like, whoa, like, what I mean? Like they would be
simmer down, honey.
Yeah. And then, like some people, like he liked it. He's like, dude, Dom, like I like hip hop, and that's why we hung out so much. It's just he was like, I didn't drive him crazy, and because it's just some people, everybody's different. It can help or hurt you. I cannot, yeah. But anyway, that was the first client. It started with a chef, and it just kind of snowballed from there. But I do want to say that I had 40 jobs, and I've been fired 11 times.
Oh.
So, and I'm not saying that, like, I'm saying it's good and bad. Obviously, it's bad because it's really bad. But, I mean, it's like I just knew that I wasn't going to stop until I figured out what I wanted to do, And you really feel like a failure. And I feel like somebody, could be listening now, and they could be going through that where they're just trying different things and they don't like it. And they keep, it's tough coming home early. And, my wife is like, did you get fired again? And I was like, yeah, but it led to the point where when I found what I needed to do, all my clients really like me, but it's like I had to go through a ton of rejection where you just feel like, well, I'm just a failure. Like I suck at everything. I mean, I keep going through jobs all the time, but really, when I found this, I was like, this is why I just kept looking, but when you're going, it's okay to look back at you've had some success, but when you're in the middle of it, you're just like, man, I can't do anything right, but I just want to encourage people with that now at this point. Like I've been doing a couple interviews and I want to encourage people, like, if you, just keep looking. If you know that you want to get somewhere, like don't give up and don't think that you're just a screw up. I mean, you'll get there, but just keep looking. But you don't have to go, fired 11 times is a lot. It's a lot.
Hey, in baseball, they strike, if they succeed 3 out of 10 times, they're like,
Yeah.
the greatest ever. So
yeah,
it's just a matter of when at first you don't succeed, you got to try again and just keep on trying and putting one foot in front of the other. And, I guarantee you all of those failures have made you more grateful for being able to find what you are passionate about and, more sure that you're doing exactly what you're supposed to do. So, and it's made you a lot more happy.
Yeah.
I mean, it's very fulfilling doing what you're supposed to do.
Absolutely.
So transitioning from, and not that you're not, because you are still a publicist, but you also are the host of the Dominic Natty Show, where you interview all manner of, like you just said, Gene Simmons. I know you've interviewed Lee Goldberg, some of the biggest celebrities out there. How did that, fall into place? And, do you like that more than being a publicist, or do you feel like they go hand in hand, or what are your views? Talk to me about your show.
The radio show just kind of, it's actually my second radio show. When I first moved to Virginia, I got a show on FM radio here, and we did the afternoon drive home with me and my brother-in-law, whose name is Nate. It was called the Dominate Radio Show.
Oh, that's cute. Very cute.
No, it was great. And then, I had that show, and it's a very conservative small town here in Lynchburg, Virginia. And I just really loved pushing the limits, because that's the way I think everybody has a training. So like, I never had one teach me anything. I didn't go to college, but I did find some training on my own. And it was really through the tabloids. And I've always been a fan of TMZ, and I've watched how people do it. And being a publicist, I see how people question, and they direct the conversation. And I would start interviewing celebrities there. And I just realized that controversy is really important, for ratings sometimes, depending on what type of show you want to do. And I like to be the villain at times. So I like, I would push the limits of comedy, and they didn't, after about 4 months, we had a lot of listeners. It was actually a really popular show, but some of the sponsors were like, who is this guy? They started, become uncomfortable with my topics. We're in the South. I talked about racism a lot, just because I felt like it needed to be, and I'm from New York. I thought some things were interesting. But anyway, they kicked me off the air after 4 months, and then I stopped doing radio for years. And then in 2016, it really kind of came about because when I started seeing celebrities, I would walk away and I'd tell a story of me with a celebrity to like my friends. And then I realized, like, you know, I have no evidence that that even happened, which is something that's just, I don't know, it's just really important to me. So then when I started taking pictures with celebrities, you know, like for the last freaking 15 years, I've been doing that. You know, now it's like obviously a big thing. And then I would post them, and when people would see that, it would help lead to business. So I was always really big on like, oh, let's post this, you know, oh, I'm with this person. And it's not so much like just to brag. It's to show people like I'm, you know, yeah. But I do like to brag also. No, well, but
important to note.
but so then this guy saw it, and he was like, hey, why don't you do a show on my station, and you're with these celebrities and you can interview them, you know? And then I was like, okay, but you know, I thought it was, you know, I started making all these demands, and he was just like, do whatever you want. So it turned out to be, you know, it's on iHeartRadio and also Intellectual Radio in Chicago. And he's just great. The station manager just never, like once a year, he might say, hey, should you keep asking the people if they're sexually harassed? Like, just wondering if you think it's a good idea. You know, you're making people upset. But again, it's up to you. Like, he always lets me just do it. He's not like that. Like, the whole station it's called Intellectual Radio. And it's about like discussing topics, and then there's my show, you know. So I mean, which is, you know, I Whoopi Goldberg hung up on me. I did an interview with Todd Chrisley from Chrisley Knows Best, and that one went bad. I mean, it was like he wound up talking about this tax evasion case, and the FBI wound up writing in the indictment they used my my interview. I mean, it's just, and then I've had a couple of things, like there's a Christian singer named Lauren Daigle.
I heard that interview.
And that one was just like, I mean, I had no idea. Like, I do try to ask some controversial questions, but I asked her if she thought homosexuality was a sin, and it was like, I mean, for a month straight, which is a long time, there's just articles and emails and like people writing reaction videos and boycotting her, like, you know. And I was like, it was just the craziest response that I've ever seen from an interview. It's like, what is going on? She didn't confess to murder on the show, you know. So, you know, I asked, and I admit it, I asked controversial questions because that's how my show is. Like, your show is, you know, more for adults. You know, it's more, you know, I mean, I like juice. I like gossip. Like, I like talking to, you know, like when we did our interview, like I asked you some things to see if I can get some sort of headline out of it, you know. That's the show. And if people
notice I didn't do that interview without Colton.
Yeah.
I made sure that he and I were on the same call, because there is no telling what may have come out of his mouth. Oh, trust me, I knew what I was doing.
You were smart. Yeah. And that's
because I learned some very hard lessons over the last 15 to 20 years.
Yeah, no, you did good. That was really smart. And I think that's, you know, and that's what it is. That's what the show is. It's going to be those questions, and I'm going to try to get something out of it, you know.
And there's totally an audience for that. I mean, who doesn't, you know, I mean, there just is. I would imagine that you would never have imagined in a million years that when you had Lauren Daigle on, that all of that would have come from that interview.
I like Lauren Daigle. Yeah.
It was very evident that you did like her very much, that you, yeah. One of my questions to you was like, have you ever had like interviewer's remorse? Like, oh, dang, I wish I hadn't gone there, hadn't asked that question. And if so, like, did you feel that with that interview, or do you have no regrets about it?
That is the only time in my entire career that I have apologized to someone.
Really? So,
Lauren, yeah, like I literally was interviewing her as someone who appreciates her. And it's just like, like I said, it's just like any other training or military training or whatever. Like when you're interviewing someone and a thought pops in your head and you think, oh, this would be such a good question, you know, and that's what it was. It was just like I was talking to her, and then I thought, ooh, this would be a good one, you know. And it's not vindictive to say, oh, I could do this and I can ruin her career. I could really like make her look bad. Like people, I got accused of so much stuff, But really, it's just like any other training when you're talking to someone and you're like, oh, this would be good. But it's not like vindictive, like it's just, that's how I'm trained to interview, is like to think of things that come up that would be like, now that would be a good question. I wonder what she would say, and that's all it is. And when I asked her that, and I actually thought she answered it really well. Like she said, I think people should look it up in the Bible and find out for themselves. And I was like, man, she really nailed this question. Like, honestly, I would tell you, I thought she really did a great job of diverting and not really saying one way or the other because it could hurt her. I thought she did great, because if people see me coming, that's fine too. Like, if you're smart enough to be like, okay, this could be bad for me. Like, I'm not going to say yes or no. That's okay. Like, I get that too, and I was like, dude, she did great. Like, she didn't say yes or no. She told people to look it up for themselves. And then the interview went out, and the next day people were outraged. And I was like,
no way she could win in that response. Like, she's going to inevitably upset someone. And, the bottom line is when you respond, if you respond from the heart, that's all you can do. That's all you can do. We're never going to please everybody, but the backlash was just wild. My heart actually felt I felt very bad for her. I actually felt very bad for you. I just, and then in the sense I was like, well, it was actually somewhat good for Dominic because there's like so much publicity that came from his show, but it was just wild across the board. Okay. But another question, go ahead. Oh, you go ahead.
I texted her like 3 or 4 days later. And I said, Lauren, I just want you to know, I'm sorry. I'm not denying what I did. I do like to ask questions like that. I was like, but I didn't mean, and I really didn't know. I really understand like the Christian like community. I was like, I had no idea it was going to be like this. I was like, and I really do actually, I feel bad. And I want you to know I'm sorry. And she texted me back and said it was okay. She was like, it's okay. I know that you were just trying to ask like juicy questions, and I know that's what your show is. She was like, it doesn't bother me. She's like, one day we'll meet and we'll laugh this off. And I was like, but I really did. I felt bad, for the first time, I think in my career. Like, I was like, I don't know, because it was too much. It was just too much. I was like, people were going crazy, like she's not a Christian, and then they really attacked me, talked about my son. Like, I don't, they're like, I'm not a Christian. I'm not, like, it's just like, wow, like what is going on, but
that whole response of, cause I heard you say, I found out from the YouTube comments that now I'm not a Christian and I'm actually going to go to hell. And, for me, it's like, okay, well, obviously the Christian community is flawed, just like all of the communities, because every community is made up of human beings and every one of us are flawed individuals. But it's just ironic that people that feel that they're capable of saying what is the truth in regards to whether or not you're a Christian and like passing that level of judgment, but then also, saying that they, that they would have a better response, or it's a no-win, situation. But it is good to hear that you and her are okay and on good terms and all of that. So, okay, I know we're out of time. I keep getting like the 5-minute warning, 2-minute warning. Just rapid fire. Do you have a best and worst celebrity guest? Least favorite, favorite?
Yeah, my worst celebrity guest was Gene Simmons. I didn't like him. My best guest, honestly, like I did interview Amber Rose twice.
Okay.
I liked her, but I would say my best celebrity guest was Bill Cosby. And this is before all the rape stuff. This is like 6 or 7 years ago. And,
I'm going to go back and listen to that one because I have not listened to that one. Is it still
up? What's that?
Is it still up, like available to listen to?
Yeah, if you put in the name of the show, it was an hour-long interview that I had to cut down because he talked really. It was just, if you like Bill Cosby, it was just so cool to be on the phone with someone, like that I liked that much, So Bill Cosby my best, Gene Simmons my worst.
Okay. Um, are you a quarantine like board gamer, video gamer, like video conference, or what is your go-to activity for quarantine besides
Uh,
smoking? Although I think that might be the one.
Please cigars, but honestly, like I really I have a lot of friends mad at me. I'm not really obeying the rules of quarantine. Like if I still might get on an airplane and go somewhere if I had somewhere to go. So I mean, but the go-to is like cigars and documentaries. Like there are some documentaries that I've been catching up on. I watched like Cocaine Cowboys 2 yesterday, and like just different things that I was like, oh, I've always wondered what that is. But yeah, I'd rather be working, to be honest.
Okay, Dominic. So one last question, because I know we are running out of time here. If anyone out there is looking for a publicist or looking to retain one, what advice or steps would you have to give them if they're hoping to retain a publicist for themselves?
Great question. So the thing with hiring a publicist is if you hired me, your question is going to be, well, okay, I'm going to give you, I'm going to hire you. Like, where am I going to go? Who's going to pick this up? Like, what exactly am I going to get out of this? And it's a great question, and I understand why people ask it. Unfortunately, we don't know exactly where a campaign is going to go because I have contacts. Like, you could tell me any publication that you like, any major publication, say, New York Times, TMZ, E! News, whatever it is, Huffington Post, Wall Street Journal, and I can give you links that have my name in the articles with them, Forbes, all that. But that doesn't mean that they're just going to drop everything and put your story in. But it is important to look and make sure that the person that you're hiring has a good resume, because a lot of people can make a lot of promises. And I've seen that a lot, and I think it's really dangerous just to say, "Oh, I've done this, so look at this. Look at how much stuff I've done, and I can guarantee you're going to be in there." Like that's not really how it works. Like all my friends that are editors have to like the pitch in order to get you in there. So when you don't want to hire someone, I mean, if it's very expensive, that has nothing to show for it. So it's like I think that's the thing, is to say, does this person have the right contacts and evidence of the contacts to get me to where I want to go? You don't really want someone that's like, oh, I'm going to help pump up your social media and stuff. Like that's not really something that legitimately I've seen done, where it's like, I can get your numbers up. Like, if you want to get fake followers and stuff, there's nothing wrong with that. But I mean, it's just like, it's hard to guarantee. That's the difficult thing, is you do need a publicist. You do need exposure. It's difficult to pay for something where you can't guarantee what you're getting in return. That's how it is. So the safest way, I think, to do that is to make sure that the person that you're investing in has has evidence that they've gotten other people there. That's why I do like my radio shows, because my radio show, I've been in CNN, Fox News, like all these major publications, and they say the Dominic Natty Show. So I can at least show you, like, I know those editors, like they didn't really find my show. Like I sent it to them and say, hey, what do you think of this? And they've liked it, so it's like, that's important. So you look at resume, and what I do, which is really unique, is a lot of PR companies want 3 or 6 months up front. I actually do it where, like, I let you do week to week, because I feel like it's safe. If I was on the other end of that, I wouldn't want to give you 6 months up front and hope for the best. Like, so I'm like, you know what? It keeps both of us honest. Like, I can give you something in a week that'll make you want to do another week. And I've worked with people for 5 years like that. And I won't say, I'm like, if you get mad at me at any point, like, even after years, like, you could stop. Or if you think it sucks after 1 week, like, you didn't invest that much. Because if I was on the other end of it, I would feel comfortable with that. I don't want to give you, $10,000 and see how it goes.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't either. That's a very, for me, like a risky amount of money to just throw at it and hope it sticks. Also, like with translating, publicity into like a return on that. Like if your goal is to quote get famous, or is your goal to make money, is your goal to expand your business, or what your brand or whatever. And different people have different goals. Like some people's goal legitimately is just to get famous. That's that's what drives them. And other people, they have some other things like, with that, or like their craft or talent or, whatever it may be. So that week to week thing is very, very appealing. I haven't heard of someone doing that. And I think it's pretty cool.
Yeah. It's gone really well. And like I said, if I was on the other end of that, I would be like, okay, you know what? Like, because truthfully, I don't know. I've been doing this for 14 years. Some things that I think are like really silly, like mobile apps that people hire me to do, they're on like, I mean, one of them was, I always use this example. It's like, there's a watermelon app. You put the phone up to a watermelon and knock on it, and it tells you if it's ripe or not, And I was like, I don't know, guys. So they're like, come on, you. So we did the week thing, and in 2 days, I sent it to this guy at the Huffington Post, and he put it on the front page. He thought it was just really funny and interesting, and then it just blew up, and their sales went crazy. Honestly, I would have never predicted that. Like, if they would have said, can you get this on front page, the homepage of Huffington Post, I'd be like, no. But it just went that way. It's like, I don't really know how they're going to respond until we start it. So a fair way to do it is to say, why don't you invest a little money up front to get it started, and let's see how it goes. Because truthfully, I would have never told them that they could be, Huffington Post is like number one, like news website. It's like, that's how it went. But I would have, you don't know until you start pitching,
That's actually very fascinating. Now, I'm going to have to check out that app.
Yeah.
And it's start a watermelon.
Called, yeah.
Things we do in quarantine.
Yeah.
Well, I have so enjoyed talking with you. I know that at some point the Dallas event is going to get rescheduled, hopefully in June, and we can do this again in person. But until then, this was awesome. It's so good to see you. I hope you stay well. You look great. Enjoy that cigar, and thank you so much for your time. It's always great chatting with you.
I had so much fun. I'll talk to you soon.
That sounds good. Thank you so much for coming. And everyone, thank you guys for joining us this week, and stay tuned for next week on When Life Throws You a Curve and how to make the adjustment. Until then, I hope everyone stays healthy and stays well, and I will see you next week. Come find me on social media on Instagram and Twitter at Katie Hamilton 32, on Facebook at Katie Hamilton, and at When Life Throws You a Curve 32, and on YouTube at Katie Hamilton.